Good morning. My name is Angel Marie Rivera. My team consists of Malia Ahmad, Natalie DeLeon, and Garen Birch. In my group, I'm responsible for the social and the cultural lens. Now let's take a look at the question that we were given to answer. To what extent can investment and innovation in Lake Nona, Florida transform the issue of urban sprawl over the next 25 years? For the purposes of my paper, I modified the question to look like this. To what extent can investment and innovation in Lake Nona, Florida transform the issue of urban sprawl over the next 25 years regarding culture and society? Before I get to my sources, I want you to understand how I set up my argument. I identified 4 major problems related to urban sprawl, and then I gave the solutions that Lake Nona is putting into place for these problems. Now let's look at my sources, why I use them, where I use them, and how credible they are. The first source I used was Conserve Energy Futures, What is Urban Sprawl? You might be wondering why there's this big red circle right here. It's because this is a very biased report. It's a blog, so it's understandable why it's so biased. It doesn't talk about the solutions with urban sprawl. It just says, what are the problems? It basically makes it look like it's a completely negative thing, but it doesn't mention how the exceptions, how other places are dealing with it. It does not mention anything. I used it for that purpose, actually. I used it first because I wanted to highlight the misconceptions about urban sprawl and then explain how Lake Nona is dealing with them. The second source I use is from CBS News. It's called Inside a Huge Community Where Yoga is Free and Events Promote Neighborhood Bonding. This is one of the sources that my group used that was not given to us. I actually chose it to deal with the problems that I presented. I have a yellow mark here because although it is very straightforward and it does talk about what Lake Nona is doing, it does not provide any future plans. So that's especially necessary due to the fact that Lake Nona is a growing community, so it does not mention how we'll deal with this influx of people coming in. I use the source more than once because it talks about my first, second, and third problem. So although I introduced it first, is my first solution article, it's not the last one, it's also the last one I used because it talks about working from home and the internet, and through the third and fourth sources, I summed it up and it led me to social activities. It's understandable once you see the other 2 sources that I use. My third source is from Fortune. It's How to Build a Great American City. This is an extremely credible source and it's especially good for my lens, which is social and cultural. It might even be great for economic and scientific lenses because it gives me a solution to the second and fourth problem, which would be obesity and people coming in, uneducated people coming in to these rural areas. My fourth source is from Science Direct. This is a scientific journal, so it's extremely unbiased. It actually provides other factors that might have affected the results. It's titled Relationship Between Urban Sprawl and Physical Activity, Obesity, and Morbidity. And it just does that. It shows how obesity is related to urban sprawl. Although this is a problem that I introduced fourth, the way I set it up is, okay, we have this problem of traffic. We go through traffic, and like I said before, we're making it a pedestrian-friendly neighborhood. This helps with obesity, and this is the problem we're having with obesity. The argument setup that I showed before is very strict. I followed it very strictly. So this was the last source I introduced, but it was not the last source I used. I used the third and second source to support whatever I put with this. What questions do you have? Yes?
If the blog-based source was so biased and unreliable, then why did you use it?
I wanted to highlight the misconceptions that people have about urban sprawl because a lot of people assume that there's no way to fix it, and I wanted to prove no, that's wrong because Lake Nona is fixing it. Lake Nona is dealing with the major problems. So I just wanted to point out the common misconceptions. Thank you.